Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge & Company. This year, she's gone from building a base of support for Obama to strengthening one that supports New York City's black communities and underserved neighborhoods. Joyce Johnson is the president and CEO of the Black Equity Alliance, and she's here today to talk about her present assignment and a little bit about, I hope, the other endeavor.
Thank you, Ronnie. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's talk about the alliance. I'd like to know exactly what is it, and where does it stand in the communities?
Sure. This was an idea, just to give you a little bit of background. About 5 years ago, in 2003, the then president of United Way of America thought that, there should be some great focus for Black New York, not to at the exclusion of anyone else. And patterned much after the other federation, the Asian Federation, Hispanic Federation, the Protestant Federation, there needed to be some concerted effort around the state of Black New York,
and that's interesting because I imagine United Way was getting requests to fund different individual programs.
Exactly, so and so that rather than this scattergun approach, more or less I would have to say a holistic approach to look at the state of Black New York, some of the issues and ills, and corral all the stakeholders, if you will, the faith community, the educators, the business community, the nonprofits, the folks in corporate America, and just good willing folks, to start to look at the problems that have been historical. We lament year in, year out about them, but there was never a laser beam approach, and God knows, as you know, there are thousands, probably 20,000 nonprofits out there doing great stuff. So Black Equity Alliance was conceived to help build capacity to strengthen this nonprofit sector for those folks journeying out, out there, technical assistance, to connect dots. I always maintain that there are many good organizations out there who are already funded, and what they need are the resources and people and organizations to support. Black Equity Alliance will connect those two dots.
They're such wonderful organizations, and they don't sometimes know of each other's existence.
They don't know of each other's existence. They don't know the need now to collaborate, work smartly. Everyone is, and even in funding, great funders, they don't want how to get it. Oftentimes their infrastructure is not what it should be, the financials, the organizational stuff. So to provide technical assistance, not to provide the vehicle to technical assistance.
So you're going to introduce groups to each other.
Exactly.
But this report was the basis for your was it the basis for the creation, or
it wasn't the
sort of simultaneous?
Simultaneous, because again, the issues have been there, and the Urban League, as you know, of New York puts out an annual report, every 10 years a report. Coincidentally, Black Equity Alliance partnered with the Urban League to do the State of Black New York, 2007. And what it does is examines 11 areas of need, disparity for Black New Yorkers, things that we know about, but most jarring to me, and I can't claim to have read chapter and verse, page to page, but the prison to the cradle to prison pipeline, the disparity in how many of our youth, who are going to prison. Another striking piece was the disparity in opportunities for Black male and women in the construction trades, the apprenticeships
we've known
forever and ever and ever. And particularly now with our housing and boom and building, every little corner of New York is being built up. What an opportunity for youngsters who don't have to have a college education, a journey trade, good wages to come into this pipeline and be a part of the fabric of New York and its economy. And so things like that, this report highlights, in addition to problems in education, the disparities in healthcare. I mean, on and on and on.
All the things we know.
All the things we know.
But this is aimed at the Black community.
At the Black community, for the Black, and what we've done since 2007, we've held forums all across New York City to say, it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to have something in your face that says, okay, this is it. These are the statistics. We've known them anecdotally, but now it's time to do something about it. And so this is like a charge catalyst for advocacy at the local level.
So do you also then go to people, to Black people who have succeeded, to get them involved? I mean, the people who are running businesses or high up in businesses?
All of that, because while, you know, some would have the notion, oh, gee, poor Black America, poor Black New York, that is not the case. We are well funded. You know, our contribution to this economy, $79 billion. So it says a lot of us have, but a lot of us have to be far more engaged in our community, and it's all local. And you know, not getting ahead of myself and touching on the other subject we will talk about, but I think the timing of this is powerful. That those that have to contribute back, you know, and so we, you know, when you talk about the corporates, the businesses, everyone has a stake in the repair of Black New York, and therefore all New York.
We want to eliminate that disparity, right?
Eliminate the disparity.
And it's not even necessarily, it's so interesting because the disparity is not even necessarily color, but it frequently is, or the majority. But
it's coincidence of poverty, and lack of opportunity, and that, you know, every ethnic group can claim that disparity. And so for, you know, well, I call it, it's an urban agenda. So it's white, Black, yellow, green, the working poor. You know, those who are, you know, impoverished, and so.
And the old thing about if you help one group, it's going to help another group, and so it's all going to be collective.
Exactly.
And you're going to pinpoint. You're going to advocate for those needs of the Black community.
Absolutely. And likewise hold the Black community ourselves responsible for ourselves, because you know, the days of, you know, someone else has to save me are really over, because particularly now we're all kind of in the same sad boat together. But that's not a hard charge, you know, having parents from the South, and that's something the way it just used to be. And I think we have to get back to that.
You know, I'm going to come back to your family and your background, but you mentioned the prison issue first. That is an acute problem.
It is an acute problem. There's a young man, Dr. Divine Pryor, in this book. And it's one of those things that we have done a show on Manhattan Neighborhood Network cable. I hope I'm not, you know.
That's all right. That's great. People should watch it.
Because we want this issue to get out broader than the opportunities for forums where there are 100, 200 people. But this is a town of 8.5 million. Critical issue. We know the proliferation of prisons in upstate. I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York. There's a little town called Beacon, New York. And when I was growing up, no one would even, it was like the Wild West. No one would go to Beacon. But now Beacon is the site of the downstate prison. What Beacon and its economy, upper middle class, all fueled by this huge prison site. And our residents in there are over 80% young Black and brown young men from New York City. And so you know, as we fought for the Rockefeller drug laws and all of this, all of this, that is an acute problem. Speaking of interest, there's a group called, a group of lawyers who got together, Pipeline Strategies, African-American who are looking at this and trying to save young Black men from this pipeline to prison.
And the chances are they're going to go back in once they're in. The recidivism rate is just in and out and in and out.
Exactly, because with the failure or lack of jobs, what do you come back to? You come back to your same depressed neighborhoods. And so Dr. Divine Pryor, this is by design. You must fuel this prison economy.
It's a prison industrial complex, right?
Exactly.
And in
the
some
United States of America, in New York State, New York City, yes.
In some cities, they have upstate. They have empty prisons, basically, or so few in the population. But because it's so important as an employer, they stay open.
Absolutely.
It's a terrible
waiting
problem.
for the clients.
Yeah, there is